1977, a family in South Wales found themselves entangled in some very unearthly encounters. At first, the encounters were not so strange, but as time passed, the events became more and more bizarre. The event was dubbed by the media as the British Roswell and the Welsh Triangle. It should be pointed out that the UFO activity around Ripperston Farm was not a one-off event, but a series of experiences that occurred between mid-January and mid-December 1977. Ripperston Farm is situated in a rather isolated area of South Wales, and there were a number of high-security military bases close by. According to the records, UFOs were reported over these bases, and the military were involved in some unusual activities and searches. It is also worth noting that in the 8 years that the family had lived at Ripperston Farm, they'd seen every conceivable sort of light in the sky, everything from flares to jet fighters and missiles, but never anything like this. The Ripperston Farm story begins on January 14, 1977, when the then farm owner Pauline Coombs saw a giant ball of fluorescent light low in the sky, oscillating like a pendulum. After approximately 20 minutes, the light started to move and disappeared below the cliff. Thinking it might be a flare from a ship in distress, she woke her husband Billy up, who was asleep in his chair, and told him to go take a look. He went out with his torch to the path at the top of the cliff, but saw nothing. The very next day, at the cliff which he explored the night before, Billy was quoted as saying there were as many as 50 frogmen below the cliff, unmarked army trucks, soldiers in camouflage. The Navy was there too, building some sort of path beneath the water. Over the next few weeks, some more strange activities occurred. First, 2 TVs overloaded and burnt out, and many light bulbs exploded. Pauline had the same dream on both burnout occasions. She dreamt a giant shadowy figure waking her and then drifting noiselessly out of the room, across the landing, and into her and Billy's room opposite. Second, Clinton, the eldest son, came downstairs shaking, explaining he had heard a low-pitched humming from outside the window while he was taking a bath. He said the noise had entered the bathroom and engulfed the room. On another occasion 2 weeks later, Kyron, the youngest son, told his mum while they were out in the car and almost home that there was something in the sky hovering. It was an orange color and swaying around. Pauline looked up and saw it was the same fluorescent light she had seen 2 weeks earlier. The fluorescent light in the sky got brighter and was moving towards the car. Kyron told his mum it was moving faster than an aeroplane. The craft moved in front of the car and descended lower towards the horizon. They were now heading straight towards it. It was a very bright orange orb, 12 feet off the ground, so bright it made the hedges light up, and they were only a few hundred feet from it. The object flew low over the car, just missing it. It turned and now followed parallel to the car and keeping pace. Kyron, in a panic, woke up the twins who were sleeping on the back seats. The twins, now screaming in fright, were leaning over Pauline's seat, clutching her around the shoulders. "Please do something. Please make it stop," they shouted over and over. The car engine died, and it freewheeled the last few hundred feet down the track road to the house. The object illuminated the area around the car and was now overhead. The children screamed as they ran into the house. When Pauline got home, she explained to Billy what had happened. Billy and Clinton went out with a torch to see what had frightened the family. They also saw the bright orange orb. The light moved suddenly, and the beam of light vanished. The orb itself streaked off at an angle, high up over the house, across the fields behind him and down in the direction of the cliff edge in the distance, and gone. They went back inside and were going to watch TV to take their minds off the event, but the TV had just burnt out. In the nearby town of Haverfordwest, 2 schoolboys claimed to have seen a saucer-shaped object with pulsating green and yellow lights hovering over an office block in the town centre. In a field near their school, they had approached a blue light, which flew off at speed when they got nearer. It had so frightened them that they ran all the way to the local police station and reported it immediately. 14 other schoolboys also saw a landed UFO 300 yards from their school, and a silver figure near the craft. They described the craft as having 10 or 11 windows and a kind of runway leading from a door. When their headmaster had interviewed them all separately and asked them to draw what they'd seen, he'd been amazed at the similarities of all the descriptions and drawings. In April, Pauline and her husband Billy were watching a late-night western when Pauline noticed a silvery glow outside in the dark. It couldn't be a car, as no noise on the gravel could be heard, as was usually the case. Billy suddenly leapt up from his chair as he saw something outside the window. As the pair stood clinging to each other, both of them were now staring at a huge space-suited individual a few feet beyond, through the window. They described the man as over 7 feet tall, clad completely in a one-piece silver aluminium-looking suit, capped by a square, solid-looking helmet fronted by an opaque, black square visor. Coming from the helmet was a thick, dark-colored pipe which went back over his shoulder. The window was 7 feet off the ground, and they say that the head was above the window. The TV started to suffer interference, and Billy called the police, as the figure just remained there watching them. As the police sirens could be heard in the distance, the figure at the window vanished. As Billy looked at it, it just vanished. They had found giant footprints in the flower bed the following morning, and the rose bush outside the window was scorched to a cinder. Many people from the press and locals did not believe their 7-foot spaceman story. They'd even offered to take truth drugs or lie detector tests, but their offers were never taken up. A few weeks later, in May 1977, Pauline saw a landed UFO in a field towards the coast. It was 400 to 500 yards away and was resting on a tripod configuration. She estimated the silvery craft size to be about 14 to 20 feet in diameter, with an antenna sticking out of the top. She reiterated that given her experience with different types of farm vehicles, she couldn't possibly have made a misidentification. A little while after the craft had left and flown out towards the Atlantic, Pauline and her husband inspected the field and discovered a burnt circular mark in the grass. In June, they were visited by 2 men in black in an enormous silver car, like no car they had ever seen before. They were described by the eldest son Clinton as being identical and wearing dark-colored suits, both very tall and thin, both with dark, slicked-back hair and abnormally large foreheads. The one who walked up to the house glided rather than walked, hardly moving his arms. A nurse who was renting a house opposite said she had seen the silver car too. She said it was really strange. I saw this fabulous-looking car first of all, and wondered who on earth you knew owned a car like that. I'd never seen anything like this before. That's the first thing that I thought looked a bit strange, and although I'd been standing right at the window, I didn't hear it crunch on the gravel like I normally would have done. It was just there all of a sudden. Anyhow, I glanced out of the window and saw this strange-looking man walking up the garden path to your front door, and after a little time, came back down again and went round the side of the house, presumably to the back door. I remember wondering why Clint wasn't answering the door, as I felt sure he was in. Anyway, after a little while, in fact, in an impossibly quick time, he was back in front of the house again, looking up at it. At that point, I left the cottage for a moment by the back door in my kitchen to put some garbage out in the bin. That's when I got frightened. No sooner was I outside and putting it in the dustbin, when suddenly, there he was, at my shoulder, standing right next to me. Now, Pauline, as you well know, there is absolutely no way anybody could get round the house and into the backyard in less than about 3 or 4 minutes. Yet within about 20 seconds of seeing him in front of the house, there he was, suddenly appearing next to me. I can't tell you how startled I was. I didn't know what to think. Then he said to me in this very flat, expressionless voice, "Where is Pauline Coombs? When will she be back?" I told him I didn't know, because I didn't trust him. In September, Billy Coombs was tending to a couple of cows in the milking shed where they were housed for the night. Around midnight, he decided to head back to the house for a cup of tea, leaving the shed locked and secure with the gates bolted. As soon as he approached the farmhouse, he heard the phone ringing and went to answer it. On the other end of the line was a furious neighboring farmer who demanded that Billy come down to his farm and retrieve his cows who were trampling his crops. Amazed at the accusation, Billy informed his neighbor that he'd left the cows all locked and secure in the milking shed less than a few minutes ago. So there was no way they were his cows. His neighbor was equally insistent though, so Billy told him to wait while he checked on his herd. When he got there, the 100 cattle, which he'd left secure in the shed, had disappeared even though the doors were still bolted. According to Billy, there is no way, in the time it took him to walk from the shed to the farmhouse, that a whole herd of cows could have negotiated not only a locked gate, but also walked to a farm a mile away while negotiating hedges and more shut gates. Returning to the phone, a stunned Billy apologized profusely to his neighbor and rallied his sons to help him herd the cattle back to Ripperston Farm. On the 12th of November, Pauline was driving her daughter and parents during the day to their house for dinner when she saw an enormous silver disc just hanging in the sky, quite motionless, the sun reflecting slightly from its burnished surface, making it shine. After seeing the object perform some spectacular maneuvers, it suddenly plunged into the sea by stack rocks. Pauline took her kids with her to investigate this further from the cliff tops, fearing that a plane may have crashed. On the rocks below, she saw two figures in silver suits, who she estimated to be between 8 to 12 feet tall. She noticed a door in the rocks, which one of the figures came out of. Both figures were moving around at the base of the rocks for some time. The figures then went back through the door. It then faded away, and the door could no longer be seen. Pauline dreamt on the 18th of December that the next sighting of the light would mean the activity would come to an end. On the 19th of December 1977, Pauline saw the light again and felt relief. That was indeed the final time, and the UFO activity had come to an end at the Ripperston Farm house. According to Billy, the conclusions were obvious. It was as if the family were being surveyed, studied, as though his family was being watched, his livestock being experimented with. To learn more about this Ripperston Farm case, you can read the 1979 book, The Uninvited by Clive Harold, which this video is based on.